Good evening, everyone. We're about to start for this evening. Firstly, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Neona Taranga, and I will be your host for today. It's a pretty straightforward program today. We don't really have a lot of time, so we're going to go right into things. We have just a few staple grounds, which are, if you would like to speak at all at any point through the program, please just do, once you are chosen, please just do unmute yourself, and then you'll be given an opportunity to speak as of when. It'll be very, very important. It is very important that you unmute yourself so that we can obviously hear you, as it is a Zoom call. We will go straight through up until about 7:30, so long as everything runs smoothly. If you can't hear us, or you can't hear myself or anyone from the team at any point, please just do pop a message through and we'll see what we can do technically for you. I hope you're all very excited. Thank you so much for joining. Very, very, very impressed with the numbers that we've got. So thank you so much for joining. And I hope that you learn and take something from today's event. We'll jump right through it. What is Law City? I believe somebody just going to jump in for us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that introduction, Irina. Hello, everyone. My name is Dorothy Dunfum, and I am the founder of Law City. And I'd like to invite you all to Law City's Insight into Law Legal Work Experience special. So my task here today is to just tell you a bit about Law City. However, before I begin, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the panel for agreeing to take part in today's event. Today is all about finding out what various opportunities there are for legal work experience, but also gaining an insight into what legal recruiters look for in the perfect candidate. So just a bit of a background about Law City. I founded Law City in December 2019 in order to connect aspiring lawyers from low socioeconomic backgrounds to the legal sector in London. And in under a year, we've managed to build a network of over 1,000 aspiring lawyers and also work closely with 30 student ambassadors during the pandemic. Our aim is to aid over 1 million aspiring lawyers from low socioeconomic backgrounds in gaining access into the legal industry. And we do this through our events. So through our events, people can gain an insight into the legal industry and also connect with various law firms and lawyers, but also connect a network of other aspiring lawyers from similar backgrounds. So if you want to get to know a bit more about us or connect with us, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at lawcity_, and also on LinkedIn at Law City, but also visit www.lawcity.co.uk to find out more about our student ambassador opportunities and how you can get involved. But lastly, enjoy today, take notes, because I will be too, and connect with us on social media, tag us at lawcity_ on all your posts, but enjoy today. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much for that, Dorothy. I hope everybody was able to hear her clearly. As she rightly said, do get your pens and papers out and make as many notes as you need to. And questions also, we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions later on in the program. So just make sure you get your questions jotted down. And you'll be able to ask them during the Q&A section. Okay, so we are just going to go right into the panel segment at the moment. We've got 3 absolutely amazing individuals that have got a wealth of knowledge to share with us today on our topic, how to gain and make the most of legal work experience. So again, get your pens and papers ready. We're going to go right into it. I'm going to ask them if they could please introduce themselves before we get started. You have about 2 minutes maximum just to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourselves and what you do and what firm you work for or what background you're coming on. I know it's a lot to share in 2 minutes, but I believe that you'll be able to do it within the time frame. So if we could just get started with Adam Lord, please.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor. I am a legal recruitment consultant with a recruitment firm named Kissoon Carr. We're based in Bank in the city. We focus on qualified solicitor hires, but a lot of what we do is also helping in terms of access to law and providing a resource for aspiring solicitors in terms of helping people get into it and just in terms of general advice as opposed to having vacancies as such and things like that. But it's something we're really passionate about is diversity and inclusion and giving back and providing access to the legal sector. So hopefully I can provide a little bit of information and a little bit of insight to the sector.
Awesome, thank you so much for that, Adam. We'll go right on to Francesca Evans, please.
Hi everyone. Yes, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here this evening, albeit virtually. It's a shame that I can't see you all in person, but I think I'm getting used to this virtual reality now. And thanks for so many of you as well for having your cameras on. It's great to see you. So just a little bit of background about me. I graduated from Southampton University studying English. I then joined a recruitment agency working with investment banks and fintechs. I then moved to a Silver Circle law firm, Herbert Smith Freehills. I worked in their graduate recruitment team for a few years, just mostly doing vacation schemes, internships, whether that was in the UK or internationally, as well as some sort of the university liaison side. I wanted to move to a firm which had a stronger ethos on making a positive social impact. I mean, HSF was such a friendly firm and I definitely love them, recommend them to everybody. But at Bates Wells, I work with a firm which is really committed to making a positive social impacts, not just on its employees, but generally. So I still look after all of the trainee recruitment there, but I look after the recruitment across the firm and a lot more of the HR projects. So I'm a wellbeing ambassador for the firm. So I'm a mental health first aider, which is coming in really useful right now, particularly as we go into the winter months. And, I'm feeling it myself. Everyone's feeling a bit grumpy and not feeling themselves. So, I think I don't want to take up too much more time, but a couple of minutes, there you go.
Awesome, thank you so much for that, Francesca. So if you have noticed, we've got two Adams with us today. So I've purposely kind of separated them with Francesca bang on in the middle. But up next we have Adam Curphey, who will just introduce himself briefly and tell us a little bit about himself.
Sure, thanks, and thanks for having me. So I'm the Innovation Engagement Manager at Reed Smith. So that role involves all sorts of various things from evangelizing legal technology, running innovation hours projects, looking at innovation strategy across the firm globally, but also working with our new joiners, potential joiners and university sandwich students on opportunities for innovation and innovative thinking and doing things differently. That includes summer tech associates that we have in the US, specifically innovation sandwich students we have from Exeter University, and Queen Mary University, and stuff that we're doing with innovation with our new starters and our future trainees, and looking at the SQE and the future of law. Outside of that, I'm a member of the O-Shaped Lawyer Group, which are looking at new skill sets for lawyers, and also the Education Task Force of Law Tech UK, which used to be the Law Tech Delivery Panel. So trying to kind of bringing together all those aspects of innovation. Future skills are very important to me because I worked at BPP University Law School for 8 years prior to joining Reed Smith. And as far as speaking at this event, excuse me, I love what Law City is doing. It's really important. I was a council house kid that managed to get every scholarship going and ended up going to Oxford, which opened some amazing doors, but I wouldn't have got there without lots and lots of help and money and assistance from people. So any opportunity to get more people into the law from low socioeconomic backgrounds is fantastic.
Thank you very much, Adam. I hope you're ready for our questions for today. No pressure, but I believe you'll be able to answer them wholeheartedly. So we're going to jump into the first question. Do excuse me for looking up and away from you. I am 100% here with you all today. But firstly, the first question will go to Adam. Which Adam, huh? Which one? Adam Curphey, this one's for you. What are the various ways aspiring lawyers can gain legal work experience during the pandemic?
Yeah, it is a tough one. So there are a couple of options. Quite a few firms have partnered with Inside Sherpa, which is a website where you can do the kind of virtual back schemes and try and see what some of the day-to-day life is like at law firms. So that gives you those opportunities. I think for me in innovation as well, I don't necessarily think it always needs to be work experience at a law firm. I think we're getting to the point now where we're looking for a wider range of skills from future joiners. And if you're interested in tech or innovation, then, you know, there are plenty of startups out there who are very keen for assistance as well. If you're at university, you know, query whether you can reach out to law firms and look at research tasks, for example. There are plenty of universities that have partnered with particular law firms to work on data projects or large-scale projects, which gets you an insight to seeing how firms work and really understanding what goes on there, and to start building that network out. So there are a few things that you can do in that regard. I think scattergunning still kind of applies, that you know, it is reaching out to as many people as possible. But I think people are also more willing to do shorter work experience situations as well. So, you know, if you've got jobs and things like that that you need to maintain, almost every vacation scheme and otherwise has shortened recently and become entirely online. So it may well be easier to fit more in, or to fit in alternatives or different ways of doing things around that. But yeah, I would say there's plenty out there virtually. Reach out to people. I think the other thing, and Francesca touched on this before, everybody's very aware of the situation right now, and I think you'll find that a lot of people at law firms are more open than they ever have been to future joiners, just asking, what can I do and how can I get involved? But I'm sure that the others will have some more stuff that you can be doing as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Francesca, what are your thoughts on that particular question, on ways aspiring lawyers can gain work experience through the pandemic that we're currently going through?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, because so many firms have different approaches on this. I think with smaller firms, they will potentially look to people that have that work experience, but how do you get that experience in the first place is the question that everyone wants to know. And I think moving forward, those smaller firms will change their perspectives on recruitment, particularly with the implementation of the SQE. I think that will change the nature of the traditional 2-year training contracts. And I think smaller firms will be able to use that to their advantage. So I think the main thing is to not do nothing, to not just apply for things and then have nothing going on. So I'll put that into a practical example. At Bates Wells, as I mentioned, we are committed to making a positive social impact. In fact, we're most well known for the work that we do with charities and social enterprises. So actually for us, as someone reviewing the application forms for a vacation scheme, I don't care if someone's got legal work experience or not. Actually, if they've gone and worked in a charity, that's really interesting, because actually that shows that they have that sort of commitment. They understand the work that we do and the ethos that we have. So I think in terms of what Adam just said, that scattergun approach is quite useful in terms of going out and actually seeing what's on offer. But I would also not get too het up, particularly if you're in your first year at university or even your second year and you're applying just for open days. Don't get too het up on what you're applying for or who it is that you're applying for. If it's just for an open day, it would be great if you can get it under your belt and get a bit of experience. And yeah, most of these things are going to be virtual from now on. But at the same time, it's not completely imperative that it needs to be legal work experience. I say this in particular for vacation schemes. I think there's a distinction if you're applying for a vacation scheme opposed to applying for a direct training contract. Because I think a lot of firms will want to see that you as a candidate know exactly what you're getting yourself in for. So that's why I think there is a preference for people to have some legal work experience if applying for a training contract directly, but it's just not the same for a vacation scheme. I would say that, I mean, for us as well, we've really embraced podcasts, and we never used to do that before. And it's been really successful. We've been able to get clients out of it. So what I would say, if you're thinking about doing applications, is having something, don't like the work experience, be a bit creative and be a bit sneaky with it. Don't just strictly keep it to, I went to this firm for X amount of days and did this work experience. You can write some random title like various, don't need to put a date in, and then just bullet point all of the things. You could say, I followed that podcast, I attended that webinar. It doesn't necessarily need to be work experience, but you are just putting in there to that reviewer, I'm really interested in your firm. I haven't been able to get work experience. You know, most firms don't offer work experience in the traditional, in the sense of not doing a vacation scheme or just ad hoc work experiences. So just try and be creative and think around the box. Like, it doesn't just have to be legal work experience. It can be that random podcast or webinar series that you've attended. And you don't necessarily just have to keep it to that firm. I think people get really worried that on their application it's going to look negatively if they've got experience in a variety of different firms. I think be prepared to be challenged on that in an interview. I think for us as a firm, if someone went to, I don't know, where we're obviously charities, if someone has done loads of shipping experience, we go, you know, why did you do that? And you can say, well, I did that and I tried it, it wasn't for me, and hence why I've applied here, X, Y, Z. Like, you can have a narrative at interview. But I think on an application form, don't hold back in terms of what you've done. And yeah, just use every word count that you possibly can and just fill it with things that you can do. And I think now, you know, there's no excuse. Everyone can listen to a podcast. Everyone can go onto a firm's website and find something and follow it. But again, top tip, if you're going to put something on your application form, and maybe if you're going to elaborate on that, then be prepared to talk about that as well at interview. So don't just pretend like you've listened to a podcast, because remember, you're going to be in a room or in a virtual room with a solicitor who might actually have delivered that podcast and will know everything about it. So you don't want to trip yourself up. So be genuine, be authentic, but don't get bogged down in thinking, I've got no work experience, I've applied to 50 firms, no one's hiring right now. There are other things that you can do which isn't strictly legal work experience, but it still shows that you're motivated and that you're sort of filling your time up. And I think if you're at university as well, regardless of whether you're a law or non-law student, join those societies, try and put yourself forward for a role in responsibility if it's an option, or, you know, try and organise a social or something like that, but just try and be involved essentially.
Lovely, thank you so much. And lastly, let's hear from Adam North regarding work experience during this pandemic.
Sure, I agree with both Adam and Francesca and everything they're saying. I think one point that is really important to make is that all your work experience is relevant. It doesn't matter what it is, you will be able to derive skills that you have picked up, be that soft skills, analytical skills, whatever it is, you will be able to identify skills that and things that you've achieved throughout that work experience, even if it is kind of whilst you're at uni working. For example, I worked when I was at uni, I worked 16 hours a week in a fish and chip shop. There are skills that I learned during that work that have moved into my professional life really well. Communication's an easy one. The ability to think on your feet and work in a fast-paced environment, but really go through the experience that you've already got and then pull out the skills that you've learned that will actually, you think, will be helpful for you in applications, but helpful for you in being a solicitor. I don't think legal work experience is the only thing you need or only thing you should necessarily look for when writing an application. I think going back to what Adam said as well, is people are really open at the moment. People are understanding that we are in unprecedented times. It's a bit of a crazy world, and it's actually a phrase that one of my mentors uses, and it is that your network is your net worth. And be it on LinkedIn, be active on LinkedIn, reach out to people, there'll be solicitors, maybe they're alumni from your university, or you know them, however, or you've just even seen them on LinkedIn, or you follow a podcast that they're on. Reach out to them, ask them how they can help and how they can help in terms of your applications. But I think in terms of that legal work experience, another point is, although it is hard to come by work experience that isn't quite a vacation scheme or isn't quite an open day, the luxury we have of being in a virtual world is we're not limited by geography anymore. I know a number of people who have volunteered or work on an intern basis or paid or well, however, with high street firms all over the country, and they're based in their room at university, that you're not limited, and just reach out to people. I think that's the main thing I would say, is use your network, reach out to individuals you know within the sector, and just see if they know anything. They may be able to give you a lead, they may be able to help you out, and just try and get that foot in the door, but then use your experience that isn't just legal work experience to really emphasize the skills you have learned that make you perfect to become a solicitor. You're not trying to show in applications that you're the ready-made model from the start. You're showing that you have the capability to learn and develop your skill set to become an effective solicitor once you do qualify. It's not about being able to show that as you go for a vacation scheme or as you go for anything like that.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Neo, this is the problem with panels. People always jumping in, sorry. But just one thing that I would say that I totally forgot, which is please do seek out organizations like Flex, so Flex, that can give kind of rolling recruitment in a number of different areas. The other thing Flex will do, taking into account the SQE, is help you to start building up that bank of work experience. The SRA have confirmed that you can start building work experience now for the qualifying work experience period of the SQE. So if you think you are going to take that alternative route in terms of experience, rather than doing a 2-year training contract at a firm or anything like that, you can start now and start banking it up.
Yeah.
But that was it. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're just going to jump over to the next part, which is, now I know, Adam Curphey, you're not really a recruiter, but I'll still love to hear your thoughts on this next question, which would be, what qualities do you look for in a candidate? How do they show this through the experience that they have? Francesca, if you could just start us off on that one.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here for me. Having had exposure to completely different types of firms, one very, very large firm with multiple offices around the world, to a firm which is has one London office and national and international presence, but just one London office. And I think it is really doing your research about that firm and being very authentic on the application form. And it's a really hard thing to do, because on one hand, as a candidate, you want to say, here are all the things that I've researched about your firm, I've been on your website, these are the things that I know, and that's great. But it's taking it one step further than that and linking it back to your skills and experiences. So again, it's not, and I often get, I don't know if anyone else has this as well, I often get lots of students, lots of candidates email me saying, once I've had a look at the application form, saying, should I use this example there, or should I use this example for this question? And I'm never going to tell anyone what example they should or should not use, because it's all about how you write it. It can be, like I think Adam North, you were just saying a moment ago about, it doesn't really matter what sort of experience that you've had, like working in a fish and chip shop, you're going to have time management skills, you're going to have people skills, dealing with difficult customers, when you get their order wrong. And that builds resilience. So there's lots of different things that you can do to link an example. It doesn't need to be prescribed. It doesn't need to be sort of what you think we need to hear. It needs to be completely genuine, completely authentic to what your background, what your experiences have been, because ultimately that's led you to wanting to make an application for that particular firm. So I would be very surprised if someone made an application to Bates Wells and didn't know that we work with charities, didn't also have some sort of passion about making a positive impact, didn't know that we were about sustainability and going on climate protests and things like that. So I think it's doing your homework and linking it back to your key skills, and never writing something on your form that you don't genuinely believe in, because that is the time when you get to an interview that you're going to be pulled up on it. Because in an interview scenario, you are more having a sort of lively conversation about things, and you're going to have to, I don't want to use the word defend, because it's not like someone's going to be saying, oh, why have you written this? But they are essentially going down that line. They're going to see how much you can be challenged. And if you've written something a bit wishy-washy, or something that you don't completely really get behind, it's going to be really, really obvious. So just apply to places that you actually want to work at. And I know that's a difficult thing, because sometimes all you have to do is base it on a website. But even then, just try and link it back to your skills and experiences, and think about really well thought out answers, rather than just being really sort of, setting yourself an unrealistic goal of applying to 30 firms. It's never going to happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Before we move on to Adam North, I do just want to encourage you, if you do have questions, just please ensure that you're writing them all down. We will have a Q&A segment near the end of today's event. So just jot all of them down and we'll do a Q&A there and then. If we do run out of time, don't you worry about that. Also, I'll give you all the details where you can send it to, and then give you the answers that you need. Adam North.
Sure.
Could you just give us?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the main things that I take away from it is there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. You are different because you are you, and that's what you need to get across. Yes, it's about showing you have skill sets, and some firms will want you to have certain levels of experience. But if you aren't, as Francesca said, if you aren't genuine, you will get caught out. It's the same thing as I always advise people who are qualified lawyers: don't put something on your CV if you aren't able to really talk through exactly what you did and exactly what your responsibilities are. And I think it's the same point applies, is be really genuine, and it is difficult to choose why you want to apply to a certain firm and what attracts you to a certain firm, because at the end of the day, every law firm on their careers page shouts about themselves and says they're great, because that's their job, and they have to do that. But I think the way you can really inform your applications and what will come across really well is if you can get some further experience, if it's through a law fair, if it's through an open day. I think the All About Law law fair is going on this week, and it's all virtual, for example. And if you can then use that to build your network and speak with people who are working at those firms or training at those firms or have experience at those firms, people like Francesca herself, people in graduate recruitment teams are always seem to be very friendly and open to having a conversation, and getting yourself on the radar by doing that is often advantageous. It will help you inform your decision, but it may also mean that when that person comes across and reads your application, they'll actually think back, oh yeah, we did have a conversation over the phone, or we did have a few emails exchanged. And don't be afraid to really reach out to the firm and ask questions about what makes them different, and then use that to inform your application. But I think, yeah, pulling out skill sets from any sort of application or any sort of work experience, that you've done is particularly key. And relevant experience is great, but all your experience is able to work. But yeah, show you really know the firm, and show you really know what makes that firm different, and really tailor that to why that's special for you, and what it is about. So for example, Bates Wells, a B corporation, why is that really important to you? And if you can really show that off, you'll go a lot further in terms of applications, and you'll also show that passion across in interviews as well, because you should be applying to places you're passionate about, not just applying to 30, 40 law firms that may all be the same or may all be very different. And I think a lot of times people I know have been asked questions like, where else have you applied, or who do you consider our competitors to be? And being able to, you don't necessarily need to be honest when you're asked where else you've applied. They want to know that you're usually applying to similar kind of firms, and that there's a justification behind that. And I think if you can really justify what sets that firm apart for you and why you'd be a really good fit for them, you're onto a winner.
Awesome, thank you. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, I definitely mirror what Francesca and Adam said. The classic example for innovation is somebody going, oh, I'm really interested in innovation. I love blockchain, I love all those things. And then you get into the interview and I will ask you what blockchain is. And if you can't answer, that's it. That is the classic example of somebody saying something they think because they've read the legal press and they've seen technology is a big deal at the moment. But if technology doesn't interest you, please don't put it on there as the thing that you think law firms are looking for. The only other thing I would say to add to those great points is there is a big move at the moment from in-house lawyers looking at the softer skills of adaptability, of actually being a good business partner. Remember, law firms have clients, and if you can understand their clients, and that's what people mean when they talk about commerciality, It's really understanding how businesses work. If you can find out what that law firm's clients are like, and going back to work experience, find work experience maybe at their clients and things like that, you're giving a new perspective. You're giving that business perspective, because increasingly law firms are hearing, yeah, we know you're good at law, we wouldn't be with you. But what can you do around innovation not involving technology? What can you do around innovation involving technology? Where do you sit on building out business skills and soft skills and the O-shaped lawyer type stuff? Because that's getting into tenders for law firms, and that's what drives them to do things. So yeah, kind of find out what makes you you, be curious, and put that in there. And I think just to echo what Francesca and Adam said.
Can I make one more really quick point? And it's just about tone as well in applications. People are always really, and we're talking about being genuine, being authentic. And I feel like I should add this in. Tone doesn't always translate when someone is reviewing an application. So if you're trying to put a joke or something like that in your application, think really carefully about whether that's going to translate well, whether that's actually going to be interpreted in the right way. If in doubt, play it safe, because I've read some real shockers. And I would just wanted to say, if you're not sure about it, get a few people to read that line or couple of lines. And if they think, oh, I'm not sure about this, take it out, delete it. It's not worth the word count. It's not worth the risk. You can try and do it at interview, but yeah, try to avoid super informal tones if you're just trying to demonstrate your personality. You know, it's still a really important document which is going to be given to people who are interviewing you. So whilst we're saying be authentic, be motivated, you know, get yourself across, just be careful about tone, and yeah, avoid any sort of, you know, crazy knock jokes.
Just to add on to that, I completely agree, but I also think it is important to get your personality across. So it is about kind of balancing that, and I think this is going to kind of go into my answer for the next question as well. But get as many people as you can to read your application, from all walks of life. Get your parents to read it, get your friends to read it, get your siblings to read it, and as long as you're coming across as a kind of a genuine professional person, that's the main thing. But I think make sure you do have a bit of personality. But yeah, I would try and steer clear of knock jokes. That's definitely some solid advice.
To try and get the right balance of both, then I guess. It does lead us on to our next question, which is, what are some frequent errors that you've come across in candidates' applications? Adam North, if you'd just like to answer that for us, please.
Sure. I think we've touched on a few of them. I think the main one is spelling and grammar. It's so simple, but I can guarantee that if you think about it, you're supposed to be a very detail-orientated person as a lawyer. If your CV or your application has any sort of errors in it, in terms of spelling or grammar, it's probably going to the bottom of the pile. And the one way to fix that is, there's a few ways actually. I think one of them is get as many people to read it as possible, especially people who are highly literate. That really helps. But another one that might seem a little bit strange is read your application to yourself out loud. Because once you read it out loud, you'll read it as it's supposed to be read, and you'll realize that either you've put something wrong, or you've misplaced a comma, or you spelt something wrong. That's a really good, just easy tip, is read it out loud a few times and then go back over it, but get other people to look over it and just make sure the spelling's kind of spot on and it's really tailored to the firm. I guess the other point I would make is which you've touched on already, is don't over embellish. I think embellishment is fine, and you do want to kind of shout about yourself and your achievements and everything that you've done, because no one else is going to do it for you in the application. But you will get caught out if you said you've done something really groundbreaking and it comes to interview and you get asked about it and you really had a really minor role and you actually made it seem like you were a real big part of it. You will get caught out. So be honest, but make sure to shout about yourself in a really good way, but don't be ungenuine in doing that. And they would be my main 2 points really, but I'm sure the other two guys will have something to add.
Thank you. Who should we go to now? Let's Francesca. You actually mentioned an error already, but I'm sure you've got a few more pointers that we can maybe take down from you today.
Yeah, of course. So I think everyone is going to apply to more than one firm. and that's a pretty, you know, standard. We're not expecting people to just put all their eggs in one basket and leave it at that. But it's very clear when someone has their sort of standard framework, which they're just copying and pasting into each application, you know, that why do I want to be a solicitor question type thing that comes up, and just plonking your answer that you've put in 3 or 4 other applications into that one. So, you know, it's linked back to what we're saying about making sure that you're getting those key differentiators in there between the solicitor at that particular firm and what skills that they're looking for. So even though it's tedious, we know applications take a long time, and we know that there's a lot of people that are going to apply. It is really important that you take your time to write something that you're actually happy with and genuinely can submit. I mean, the amount of applications that I read every year that have the wrong firm name in, you know, and you just want to bang your head against the wall about it. It's so frustrating because they've got a great application, but, you know, why should I put someone through who can't even get the firm's name right on their application? It's just like the golden rule. So that's one point. I think the second point, which is something which is very delicate and very sensitive to talk about, but it's mitigating circumstances. I think so we work with Rare Recruitment, and we've always been very big on contextual data. So never just taking the information on an application form at face value. And I think it is a candidate's responsibility to include any mitigating circumstances that they've experienced as well. And if you're applying to a firm where you don't feel, and again, I know it's difficult because perhaps all you've seen is their website and you've not been able to actually speak to people. So sometimes it's easier to just pick up the phone and just say, is there someone from the graduate recruitment team that I can speak to? I want to talk about my application. And then you can get to the right person that way. There'll always be a name on the website that you can speak to, or if you prefer, include those mitigating circumstances in your application form. And the reason why I really urge people to do that is because we won't know otherwise. And if we're just looking at a set of information, maybe that is academics, or maybe it is a lack of experience. It's just really useful to have that contextual information to say, okay, well, this has actually been a horrific time that this person's been having, but look at them now, they're applying to law firms, you know, they're really motivated, and these are the steps that they're taking to address things. So I think, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, being a mental health first aider, I work in a firm where it's unusual, but mental health is no taboo. We have very senior role models within the firm who are our mental health champions. You know, we have senior partners who are mental health first aiders. And so for us, we want that filtering through the whole way through, and we want everyone to be bringing their whole selves to work. So I would really implore people to think if there's anything that they would like to include it, because if a firm is going to look negatively at that, shame on them, but also why should you work there? You know, if they're not actually going to embrace that and be respectful at an application stage, why should you give them your like soul and work there at the firm? So I would say, yeah, try and encourage it if you feel comfortable enough, or think about other ways that you can disclose it. And by that, I don't mean you have to give everyone your life story, but you can just include what you feel is appropriate.
Awesome, thank you so much for that. Adam Curphey, have you got any pointers for us in regards to errors that you've seen?
Yeah, just to draw on Adam's point, I had a friend who once put on his CV in terms of embellishment that he had been a competitor on the Crystal Maze. It was a really random thing to have said. And then got to interview, he never had. And then he got to interview one day and was asked about it and completely froze. And he came out just said, I don't even know why I put it there. But yes, don't embellish too. If you do, don't do random stuff like that. Yeah, the 2 problems I've seen pretty much mirror. One is people who clearly don't believe what they're saying, and they have made their CV into a cookie cutter of every other CV that you've seen, saying the word interesting a lot. I really find law interesting. I hate the word interesting. It comes up so much. Find other ways to say it. The other thing that I've seen is people just missing an easy win, which is every firm out there is very open about their core values and their culture, and they're usually like 5 keywords. Put them in somewhere. just drip them through. Where you're going to say a word, if it's similar to one of those words, drop in their core values as words. It was one of the things that the careers department of PPP always advise people to do, and I think it's a really good thing. If you're doing this quick research, I just checked right now while people were talking, just Googled Reed Smith core values, and it was the first Google result in a little box and everything. So I didn't even need to click on a link to find out. So they are there. So that is the one thing, being so samey that it ends up looking like everybody else's. And the other Francesca's already talked about, which is one where it's clearly designed to go to lots and lots of firms, and there's no narrative thought behind it. We certainly have people at law school who made a lot of very strange decisions in their elective choices for law school, because they thought they were opening their options out, and they would say, oh, I want to do kind of family law and like deep prospectus corporate law. The problem is, at some point you're going to hit an interview and a firm is going to say, well, why did you do that? And the answer, because of what I do at every single law firm, I don't really care about yours, it doesn't really work when what they want to hear is how amazing they are. So do think about those sorts of things from a tactical perspective, but almost from a tactical perspective. Is there a narrative, like Francesca said, is there a narrative behind it that you can give?
Fantastic, thank you so much. Before we go on, I do just want to go over our social media platforms, if you would like to continue the conversation or just gain a little bit more knowledge on Law City and what we're doing as a whole. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at lawcity_. You can then also find us on LinkedIn at Law City. We do have a website, www.lawcity.co.uk. I will repeat that at some point again later on if you didn't catch it, but we'll move on to the next question. I hope you're gaining a lot of knowledge from the panelists this evening. I'm learning so much myself, made a few notes, so I really hope that you're gaining some knowledge yourself and some pointers on your applications. So your next question, guys, is what makes people stand out during a vacation scheme, and how do they convert this into a training contract? If we could start with Francesca first.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, I think, because I think some people have a sort of perception that who shouts the loudest is going to get through. Or who is the biggest personality on a vacation scheme is the one that's going to be offered the training contract. And I in my experience now, I don't think I would agree with that, although that is a sort of common expectation as a student. And you're sitting there and you can see people doing it, comparing themselves to other people who are really loud and really chatty. And actually, we're not looking for that. We're looking for the sort of the substance behind it. So I think for us, when we can see people who are genuinely engaged with the content, what's going on, the work that they're doing, and people who are actually pushing themselves out of their comfort zones as well, perhaps networking, walking up to a group of people isn't in your skill set right now. By the time, and actually, when I think about what I was like at university, could I honestly say that? Absolutely not. I mean, it was, probably only in the past year or so that I feel a lot more confident doing things like this myself. So by the time that you actually get a training contract, realistically, you're not going to start for another 2 years. So I think for us, it's all about the potential in people. So it's natural that you're going to sit on a vacation scheme and compare yourself with your peers. But I think as long as you just remember why you're there, and you keep researching, you keep finding out about that item. Perhaps someone has asked you to do a piece of work. Maybe it's a piece of work that you can hand back in that day. But actually, if you keep following up with that piece of work, whether that's something that's in the news or going on in the firm, and you can say to that partner or whoever it was, actually, I carried on with researching it because I was interested in it. And these were the things that I found. That's really great. I would say as well, like for me, first-hand experience where I've had people who have done really well during the vacation scheme, but in the final interview on the vacation scheme, for some reason they've just crumbled because of nerves. they've answered a question and they could tell it was a misfire, and they've followed up with the interviewers afterwards and said, actually, what I really wanted to say was da 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 da, and that's always really well received. So never miss an opportunity, never just let something go past and think, oh, I didn't do very well at that. It's the people who actually follow up afterwards, who in my experience do really, really well. So in a nutshell, that is just making sure that you're having a really good presence. Don't be intimidated by other people who are around you. That's so much easier said than done. I think, you know, we'll continue to be intimidated throughout our careers, particularly when you're up against lawyers who really know their stuff. But try not to. Try again, let that personality come through. But if there is something in, perhaps as I say, in an interview scenario which you think you haven't answered quite as well as you wanted to, follow up with a message afterwards, a phone call to the recruitment person or even the partner, whoever's interviewed you, and just say, I reflected on that, didn't do the best that I could have done. Actually, this is what I've really wanted. And I genuinely have seen people translate that into training contract offers. So, you know, it really genuinely does happen.
Thank you so much for that. Adam Noor.
So I think that's such a good point, just to piggyback off of what Francesca said, is if you know you've bombed a question on an interview, there is opportunity to go back over that and really use that. Don't kind of dwell on it and feel sorry for yourself. If you can be proactive, that's going to show so much more to the recruitment advisor or to the partner who's interviewing you, as opposed to kind of you sitting there and stewing on it and thinking, oh, well, that's my shot. I think at the end of the day, you've got nothing to lose as well. It may not work, but it may well work, and that's a great point. I think even going a bit further, I've spoken to a few people who've been in preparation for vacation schemes and kind of panicked in terms of what they should prepare. And I think there is an element of making sure you are prepared in terms of knowing what you're going into and having an element of preparation. But I think one thing that is really important is make sure you've had a week of good sleep going into the vac scheme. Make sure you're not worrying about it too much. Make sure you're kind of as healthy as you can possibly be at that time to really throw yourself into it. And that doesn't mean to kind of shout the loudest or be the first one to volunteer to everything, but it means being really switched on, being really engaged, showing an interest and taking a genuine interest in the work that you're being given to do. At the end of the day, a vacation scheme is an opportunity for you to try out the firm as much as it is for the firm to try out you and see if you could be a good fit for a training contract. So I would say take a diary and take notes, reflect on every single day, and you can then use that if you get into that. If you have an interview at the end of your vacation scheme, as a lot of them do, or anything like that, you can then reflect and say, well, on this day I did this, I learned that, and that was interesting to me because. And I think another thing is an opportunity that a vacation scheme really is the ability to network. It's an opportunity to go into the firm, or if it's virtual, you're still engaging with people at the firm, and that's partners, that's associates, that's people in HR, in business support, but really talk to them about their experiences. Why did they choose to, if it's someone who trained with the firm and is still there 3 years later, why are you still with the firm at 3 years qualified? What has it been about the firm that they work at that's really kept them there and kept them engaged and kept them interested? And then you can use that in an interview. That's evidence that's more than something that you've pulled out of your head that you think would be quite theoretical. That's someone saying to you, this is why I'm here and this is why it's great. And at the end of the day, they know the firm better than you do. So I think use that opportunity to network, speak to people, even if it's just a virtual vacation scheme, and you just connect with them on LinkedIn and say, oh, I really enjoyed working with you last week. You taught me this. I was wondering if we could just keep in touch. And guaranteed, as we were saying at the beginning, people are really open and people are really caring, especially with what's going on at the moment, that use that network and use that opportunity. And that will make you stand out to people at the firm by just speaking to them, showing an interest in what they're doing and telling them a bit about yourself as well, would be kind of my main pieces of advice.
Thank you so much. Finally, Adam.
Yeah, so I wrote down 3 things when I saw this question, and I've kind of, they've all been dealt with in one way or another. So yeah, what I would say is follow up. At some point, somebody's, Adam and Francesca both said this, at some point somebody's going to say, oh, do we think Adam was good? Do we like Adam? And if that name hasn't resonated with these very busy partners and associates who've got other stuff on, they'll just go, who? So if you can follow up in the ways that have already been discussed. 2 was seek people out. So we had a bunch of people in for a VAC scheme, and one of the VAC schemers found my email address and said, look, I'm really interested in innovation. can we talk about it? And I was like, yeah, of course. We spoke for maybe half an hour. And then, of course, after that, I spoke to my boss and said, oh, I just spoke to one of the vaccine who spoke to somebody else. And suddenly it gets back that that person is interested, and they've recently got a training contract as well. I'm not saying it's because I said anything, but it's that sort of being able to find the bits that interest you. You're really interested in pro bono, find out the person who's working in pro bono and talk to them about their experiences. The other is to kind of do what's asked of you. And it seems obvious, but people have a tendency when they do get given tasks to go over and above and to try and do more than they're asked, specifically with research tasks. It's like, oh, can you find out what this section means? Oh yeah, and I've also found out the history of the entire legislation. Don't. Just keep to what you've actually been asked to do, and take a little bit of time just to make it look pretty, which seems really sad. But one of the best bits of advice I got when I was starting out was like, just take the time to put it in a plastic sleeve and staple it. Virtually, take the time, just make sure the font looks nice and it's all in the styles or whatever, because that quickly translates. Oh, this is nice. Oh, and I got complimented on that in my training contract, which is really sad. But it's one of the things that's out there that people really do can see, that you take value in your work product. So they're my only bits.
Thank you so much. So we've got a couple more minutes left.
Can I do another quick one? Really, really quick one. Sorry, I know I keep doing that. But I just thought it was probably important to say as well that quite a lot of schemes will probably be virtual. Like ours went virtual last year. And I just think probably by end of January, we'll have to make a call on what we're doing next year. I mean, in particular, I'm getting married during when the vacation schemes are taking place, so I definitely need to be even more organised. But I would say if they are virtual, it's really obvious if you're on your phone or you're replying to emails and things. It's not so bad if it's like a group setting, but if it is someone who has been organised to host a session for you, give them your undivided attention, because it's just really rude and it's just really obvious. Even when you think you're being really sneaky, it's you'll have seen it now from having done it so much on the screens yourself. You'll pick up on it on one another. So just make sure that you're totally present and in the moment. But yeah, sorry, that was all.
Yeah, that's just like in classrooms. There's a reason. Why are you staring at your crotch? It's because you're looking at your phone.
Yeah, thank you so much. As I said, we've got a couple more minutes left of this particular section, so we're just going to run through the last two questions very quickly. So if I want to ask the panelists to maybe just narrow down your responses to 1 or 2 points for me, please, that would be much appreciated, and then maybe we can just put something together if you do have anything more to say on the next few questions, and we can give it out to everybody that's online today. So next one will be, how important are A-level and university grades when recruiting? If Adam North could just hit me up with maybe 1 or 2 points on this particular question.
I'll do my best to be brief. I think obviously some firms do have A-level requirements, and there has to be an expectation of that. And it's interesting, actually, it's something that's being really considered within the legal sector at the moment, is what are A-level expectations, and should there be an A-level requirement? Because I think if you look at it, a lot of people are very different people to who they were when they were 17, 18 to trying to get training contracts at whatever your age you are, 21, 22, 23, 24. I'm a completely different person to who I was when I was 18, and I think your results will reflect that. So it's interesting, it's something to watch. I think they are important, but they're only part of the story. And I don't think if you've got slightly worse A-level results to another candidate, but your application's a lot better and you've been genuine and all the points that we've said, I don't think that's going to harm you at the end of the day. That's kind of my brief mention on it. I think they are important, but they're only one part of the story and they don't define you.
Thank you very much. Adam Curphey, please, if you could just give us a few pointers.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I haven't had as much experience in having to assess this. The one thing I can say is that from a choosing your law school perspective, there are also requirements for law schools of certain levels of degree, for example. So it's always worth seeking those out, because that is one of the things that law firms may look at is to say, oh, you went to this law school or that law school. I think that's going to be quite interesting in a post-SQE world where there are lots of new legal education providers. So do just think about where you might want to go and kind of what that shows, but nothing more to add on top of what Adam said.
Thank you, Francesca.
Yeah, I think it's one which is going to be discussed a lot moving forward. So as I mentioned, we work with Rare Recruitment, and lots of law firms work with Rare in terms of the contextual recruitment piece. So A levels are never just sort of taken at face value. I mean, Rare's recommendations to law firms have been that law firms still ask for A-level grades. But actually, what we as a firm do anyway is look at academic progression. So I'm really not that bothered about A-level grades. If you've gone on to do, you get a consistent 2-1 or above at university, or you've got a really good rest of your application form. So nothing is ever taken in isolation, essentially. I know we've got to be really.
Thank you, Francesca. I'm going to direct this question to you to finish off. As a recruiter, do you consider pro bono experience as legal experience?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting one. So it's still great exposure. I think it depends the nature of the pro bono, because it can be really varied. It can be really broad. You could go and do a sort of citizens advice bureau type thing, at Whitechapel. Go and help people with cases. That's a really common one that lots of students get involved with, and I think there's probably tons of opportunities through your university to do it. I think it's really, really well recognised on application forms, and moving forwards probably even more so, particularly where there is, I would say, a lack of paralegal roles, a lack of legal admin roles right now. Most firms are sort of plugging resources internally rather than having an influx of new people. I think for the course of the year, we'll still have to deal with the firms that have deferred their training contracts as well. So won't be necessarily getting their trainees in at the designated times, which will have a bit of a domino effect. So yes, pro bono is a really great thing to get involved with if you can do. But again, it's no showstopper if you can't.
Awesome, thank you. Adam North, I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer that question. If you could give me 1 point, please, and then we will round off this section as a whole.
Yeah, I think, kind of as I've said before, that all experience can be relevant, and at the end of the day, pro bono experience is very much legal work experience, and it's how you position it. I think it's how you position it in an application form and how you position it in an interview to really show the skills you've taken out of it and what you've learned and what you've achieved doing it. So yeah, my short answer would be yes. I would say pro bono does at the graduate level in terms of the training contracts and back schemes. 100%. I would. I think the opportunity to get involved in any sort of pro bono work is not only a great thing to do in terms of building up your experience, but it's also a great thing to do in terms of kind of giving back and helping out in society in general.
Yeah, can I do 5 words? Literally 5 words. I'm counting. It counts for the SQE.
Awesome, and you kept it to the 5 words limit. Well done. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to all 3 panelists today. I sincerely hope that we've all taken something away from today's session. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask. I've been receiving some private messages of questions. I'm going to start with those, but if you do have a question to ask, please do so now. Once again, as I said at the beginning, if you would like to speak, please just put a message through, and then once I've chosen you, you can just unmute yourself for me and ask your question. So I'm going to read out the first question, and I believe it's from a point that Francesca made earlier on in regards to giving your undivided focus on virtual interviews or anything that will be done virtually. The question was, on the point of giving your undivided attention, would you recommend taking physical notes rather than online notes? So as not to give the impression that you are distracted. Francesca, would you be able to just give us an answer?
Do you know what? It's going to be a real funny answer. So I think it depends like what your setup is. So like I'm in the kitchen at the moment because my network is much better, but when I'm doing Zoom calls, but normally I'm in a different room and I have a monitor. So I'm slightly looking at a different screen. So I think if you just make that clear when you're doing it, and I think most of the time people aren't assuming that you're just staring out of the window. But sometimes you might need to be just a bit more exaggerated, like waving your pen in, holding your pen in the thing so that people can see that you're taking notes. And I know that sounds, I said it was going to be a silly answer, but it is sort of where you can't pick up emotional intelligence as well, or sort of social cues on Zoom and Microsoft Teams. You are going to have to sort of force it a bit more to make sure that that person knows. That being said, if there is a time for Q&A afterwards and you're asking insightful questions, that person is going to know that you've been giving your undivided attention. So, you know, don't go mad on it. But if you're in doubt, you can always just put a chat on the function just to say, sorry, my head's turned. This is just where my monitor is. And then you've just covered it off and you can move on.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I really hope that answered your question. Over to Howard, who has a question. Please do unmute your mic and feel free to ask your question, please.
Can you hear me?
Right, yes, you can.
Thank you to the panelists, Adam, Francesca, and Adam. I've got 2 questions. So one is for all 3 panelists. So the training contract application process can be a very tough one. Do you have any advice about building resilience and managing rejection during the process? And then my question is to Francesca about Bates Wells. So aside your, I think, the REACH working group and all your other initiatives, do you have any other things that you're doing to promote diversity and inclusion? Are there any strategic goals or targets in place to support them? Thank you.
Shall I go first on the Bates Wells one, and we can come back to the other one? Yes, in answer to your question, we do have a huge amount of work that we're doing at the moment. I think in terms of law firms generally, they're hugely behind the curve. And to work in a firm which is so progressive in terms of mental health and pushing conversations like that forward, we are still massively behind when it comes to diversity, particularly diversity of race. So actually a gender balance is pretty good, pretty happy with that. But diversity in terms of race is not somewhere that we're happy with. So we have got special and specific branches which are sort of having an action plan throughout the firm. We're looking completely holistically at our recruitment practices to make sure that they're a lot more diverse and inclusive. We are working really closely with our diversity forums and networks so that they can tell us what we need to be doing, sort of hold us to account, but also making sure that our senior leadership are being the role models and really striking the right tone for the rest of the firm. So actually we had a RISE group meeting today, which is the branch that I'm just discussing, which was a firm-wide webinar to join, and it was to talk about our firm's commitments to diversity and inclusion, where we're at, where we want to be. Most of our firm actually turned out for the call, which just shows that it's very much on people's radar and something that we really want to push forward. I think we are one of a few firms that have signed up to so many different charters, but we've signed up to the Race at Work Charter, which is specifically in regards to this, and the Race Fairness Commitment as well. And basically, in a nutshell, those sorts of charters make sure that you have to ask absolutely everybody in an exit interview, have you ever experienced discrimination of any kind, not just in regards to race? In all of our induction processes, discrimination is absolutely not tolerated. So it sets a sort of standard guideline, which in terms we are following anyway, but it just makes sure that we have an agreement, we can be held accountable to that. But yeah, we are doing a lot more work around recruitment, and particularly, in trying to encourage people from a more diverse range to get into law. And I don't just mean for training contracts, I mean business services roles as well, just generally roles across the firm. So I hope that goes some way to answering your question. Yeah, good. But as I say, I think law firms are just generally behind the curve. So if anyone has any ideas, wants to connect with me afterwards about how we can be better, or embrace more diversity, then please reach out to me. I'm so keen to get involved in as many things as possible. So if anyone is here that has an idea or needs some firm-wide sort of support for them, then just let me know. Sorry, shameless plug, but you know, every time.
Thank you so much. How would you like to repeat your first question that you directed to all three panelists again, please?
Yeah, that's fine. So I was saying the training contract application process can be very tough. Do you have any advice about building resilience and managing rejection?
I can start this one. This was something that I attended a talk that we sponsored at the University of Law last year when we were allowed to do events in person. And there's actually a partner at Reed Smith, Daniel Winterfeld, attended. He's a great guy anyway. Go check him out on LinkedIn. He's incredibly active in terms of diversity and inclusion and is a real champion. One thing he said that really resonated with me is you only need one yes. And I know that's really, really simple, but it is, keep that as kind of your North Star when you are applying and you do get rejected, because you only need one. And also another point that I think is worth mentioning, just because you get a no doesn't mean you're not good enough. I like to think of it as, it means that firm's not right for you. And it means that you may not have been happy there anyway, and it's just not the right fit, and that fit will get there. But I think one thing is pulling together. A lot of people, all law students, well, not all law students, but a lot of law students are going through the same process at the same time. And it's easy to kind of think of yourself in a vacuum, but pull yourself together, read each other's applications, don't see each other as competition, see each other as kind of support networks, because you will get down. And that's not to say you could be the most resilient person in the world, and being told no a few times is always going to get you down. But it's how you bounce back and use that you only need one yes as your North Star, and really focus on that and pull together, support each other. If you've got a friend who's down, just take them out for dinner, take their mind off of it. And I think it is, in terms of being prepared, you can write more applications if you start early, and you can also stagger them so that you're not, all you're doing is writing applications and all you're doing is getting no's. If you can kind of stagger them throughout the year, that resilience is easier to find, it's easier to manage the responses from different firms. And also ask for feedback. Ask for feedback if you can. And not a lot of firms will necessarily give it at the application stage, unfortunately. But if you call up Graduate Recruitment and say, hi, my name is XYZ, I submitted I've got a rejection, I just wondered if there was any feedback on my application form. They may well give you some, and that's going to help you next time. Would be my point. I don't know if Adam or Francesca have anything to add on that, but keep that thought of you only need one yes, because it's so true.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. The extra thing I would say is that it's 99% likely that the person who is interviewing you, or the person in the firm, has had a no. You know, none of us are getting. I've certainly had, none of us got into the first firm that we applied to and went, yeah, that's great. I did one application and I got into that firm. Way. So, it's not suddenly like you don't fit. And I think Adam's right. It's finding the firm that fits for you. So I certainly got turned away from a number of firms and told no when I was trained to be a solicitor, but I found a firm and now here. So I think you've just got to keep thinking of that.
Yeah, completely agree. When I was working at Herbert Smith Freehills, the managing the partner for vacation schemes, on every welcome, he would say to all of the students there who'd got on, you've got less than 1% chance of converting this into a training contract. And he was right, it was less than 1% chance, just because of the sheer volume of applications that we had coming through to us each year, and obviously the places that we have available. So even if and when you do get rejected, you need to try and keep some perspective of it. It's nothing personal to you, even though it feels deeply personal to the reviewer. There is just always such a sheer volume of applications. That doesn't say try any less on your application. Don't go in with a defeatist attitude. But just always try. That's why I say at the beginning with the work experience thing, be sneaky. Include this panel event that you've been on this evening on your application form. So these are the sorts of things that you can be doing to always try and push yourself to stand out as an applicant. But yeah, it is difficult. I would avoid going on LinkedIn from August to October if you haven't got a training contract, because I know everyone likes to post that they've got a training contract application. So just look after yourselves, know what your trigger points are, know when the pressures are, and again, try not to compare yourselves with your housemates or your flatmates who maybe have a vacation scheme. Be happy for them, but they need to respect that you're in a different place to them as well at that moment in time. But like Adams have both said, it's not like it's not going to happen for you if you really want it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Francesca. I'm going to go on to the next question, which isn't directed to anybody in particular. So if anyone wants to answer it, then just pop over and answer. How do you research law firms? If you could give me a little bit more. I presume the question is just asking, how do I begin my research? How do I pick which law firm to go to? The person that did answer this question, if I'm not articulating this properly for you, please just pop me another message and I'll read that out also. But that's my own assumption. How would they start their research and how they pick which law firm to go with?
I'm going to jump in on this one just to begin with and say that it's really hard because so many firms say the exact same thing. We work with really interesting clients. We're really passionate, like Adam Curphey said about the firm's values. Every firm has values, and largely they kind of mean the same things. Like ours are walk the walk, face forward, and being people. I mean, pretty much all firms say things around those types of values. So it's going deeper than that. It's looking at the clients. It's looking at any sort of stories that you can find on like Chambers Student. The Chambers Student True Picture is a really good place to start because they always, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but they always interview trainees during the most stressful points of the year, which is in relation to qualification. So trainees will be going through qualification, but won't necessarily have found out whether they've got a job or not. And it's all completely anonymous. We don't know who gets asked anything. And that's the time that trainees normally just lose their shit and actually say exactly what they want to say. So the True Picture in Chambers, I find, is a really good indication of how people genuinely feel. So have a look at that, and that's a really good sort of way to find out what sort of things that you might be interested as well. Again, podcasts, videos, most law firms will have some sort of social media presence. So looking at their LinkedIn, most firms as well have a life page, which is just on the tab on the left-hand side. And that is normally something which isn't just about like the firm sort of strategy, but it's normally like the softer side. And some more of like the fun events that they might have been involved with. So take a look at some of those things as a first port of call.
Yeah, I would also add, have a look at Roll on Friday and Legal Cheek that usually have an assessment of a variety of firms. Legal 500 if you can. If you want shocking confession time, I picked White & Case where I trained because they were describing the Chambers Guide. Every firm had to describe itself as a haircut, and it described itself as a mullet or business at the front or party at the back. And I actually picked that based on that, which is terrible.
So good.
But you've got to find the firm that fits for you for whatever reason it may be. And then once you've done that first vacation scheme, you'll start to get an idea. Or once you actually connect with that firm, you'll go, oh, okay, I didn't like that. I'm going to move to this. So the more exposure you get, the better.
Yeah, just to let go of a little secret as well. Qualified solicitors use Chambers Student True Picture to get an idea of firms that they're applying to. They might tell you they don't, but they definitely do, and it does give you a great picture. I think just to answer the second part of that question in terms of how to choose which firms to apply to, I think the best thing to do is actually to take a step back and think about, and although it's a really hard question, is think about the clients you want to work with or types of clients you want to work with, and think about the areas in which those in that make those firms different, or think about the areas the characteristics that you would want in a law firm, put them together into have a few bullet points or a few different characteristics, and then go through Chambers Student True Picture, go through Legal 500, go through Legal Cheek, and actually see which firms do match up. Because you may think, oh, I really like that firm for even just an opinion at the end of the day. But if they don't match up to the criteria that you set yourself, you probably shouldn't be applying there, because A, your application won't be as good, and B, it's probably not where you want to be, even if it's a firm you really like. So for example, if you want to be, you want to be practicing kind of corporate commercial law, but you really like the law firm Farrer and Co, because they've got a really nice office in the West City, in the West End, but they don't really do that kind of work. You may really like them as a firm, and you may know someone who works there and they're great, but are they going to enable you to do the type of work that you really want to be doing for the rest of your career? Probably not. So maybe they shouldn't fall into that list. And building that criteria before you even start looking at firms is a good way of making sure you're applying to the right sort of places for you.
Thank you so much. Before we go on to the next question, I am getting a lot of private questions, which are awesome, but I would like to encourage each and every one of you to ask your questions through the Zoom call. So I will just randomly pick some of these questions and ask you if you can just read out your question and ask the panelists directly. If I could hear from Gabby, please. You said you had a question.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. All your points have been really helpful so far. I was going to ask, so I've recently set up a LinkedIn account to try and network a bit more. Who would you recommend for us to start looking at to try and connect with? Because it can be a bit overwhelming with like so many people coming up on your feed, but who would you recommend to look to connect with?
I probably have the wrong answer here. I would say, like, don't be too precious about it. Some like building out your network is a really important thing to do as a first port of call, and actually just having some content that you can follow on your news feed will build out more things. So don't get bogged down. It's not like anyone's gonna really look at who you're connected with on LinkedIn, but it's just about making a start, building it out, and then once you start figuring out who you want to apply for, you can try and connect with people. I would say try to avoid firing out connections to absolutely everybody without sort of, you know, like a little message goes quite a long way in them, particularly if you've never met that individual. I always have students adding me, but it's always great if someone says, really enjoyed you at Law City this evening, or something like that. You know, it's a lot easier to go, oh great, okay, well they attended that event. You know, I'm very, very happy to connect with them in that sense. So I think just try and follow some things that you're interested in. Try and follow some big corporations as well, some people that are going to have some regular content coming up, and actually try and start liking and even commenting on those posts, building out your own LinkedIn profile. But at the moment, don't be too precious about it. Just try and get yourself going with it. And then later down the line, you can narrow it down if you want. But that's probably the wrong answer.
No, I agree with that. I think there is an element, don't be precious, and it's good to connect with anyone who you think may help you. I think putting a bit of a message in there for context is always good. I can't believe we've got an hour and 20 minutes in without me having a shameless plug, so I am going to go for it. The company I work for, Kissoon, Carr, do have a podcast. It's called the Legally Speaking Podcast. It's a worthwhile page to follow. We put out quite a lot of content on that. It's also quite an interesting podcast. I've featured on it a couple of times. It's actually my director who hosts it. I'll put a link in the chat just to the website, but follow pages and follow law firms and look at the content they generate and they create, and comment and engage with it. And then, don't be precious. Follow people. If there's someone who, if you think you really wanted to work or we're really interested in exploring Reed Smith, obviously the logical person to add here is Adam. But if you find an associate or you have a mutual connection with someone, just add them and send them a message. But, I'm an aspiring solicitor. I was wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about your experience of Reed Smith. And don't be precious if they don't respond. They're really busy people. You may need to message a few different people to get that response, but they're not going to think ill of you because you've messaged them. They're going to think, wow, you're quite a proactive individual, and that's only going to be a positive. People are really busy, so don't worry if nobody responds to you. That's a real big part of my job, is being prepared for people to not respond to you, and follow up. If you really do have an interest in speaking to someone, just follow up with them. But I think build out your profile, have a picture, share content, and engage with content is the main thing, and connections will come. and obviously connect with all your friends, connect with all that other law students and things like that, and don't be too worried about it. But I think follow some interesting pages is a really good point that Francesca put out there, because they will show up content in your feed that will help you.
Yeah, and I think most of my network was built out from kind of snowballing at events. I went to events that I thought sounded good. You add people that you meet at that event or that were speakers at that event, you see what they comment on, and then you end up adding those. And, so there isn't for everybody a kind of quick, I'm getting into law, because obviously I don't know what interests you around law, the areas that you're interested in. So it's not kind of like there's a list of you must follow these people. But I think if you go to an event and it's good and you want to connect with somebody there, you can do that and then see who they comment on and then start following them. And, that's generally how it kind of builds out. So yeah, just to add that.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that is the end of our Q&A for tonight. I know that there were quite a few other questions that people had to ask. So what I would ask you to do is to DM all your questions or message them through to the socials. That would be LinkedIn at Law City, that's it, at social, at Law City on LinkedIn, and at Law City _ on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That's for those of you that had questions that you are not able to ask today, or if we finish tonight and you just realize actually I did have a question, then you can also use the platforms accordingly. And if you want to speak to any of the panelists a little bit more, then of course you can obviously follow them on their socials and gain a little bit more info on them and start a conversation with them. Now, Adam, you have something that you'd like to share with us today, don't you? Adam North, that is.
I do, and that's why I said shameless plug number 1, because this is shameless plug number 2. I recently co-founded a platform that's a legal news content platform called The Legal Update with a friend of mine who's a trainee solicitor. We are a legal news content provider that's focused on 3 things outside of kind of employability and commercial awareness. It is sharing interesting, concise, and positive news about the legal sector. And we charge a small subscription for a newsletter that goes out on a weekly basis. We have audio discussions in a kind of podcast style. We have video Q&As from people within the sector, and just various articles and newsletters. We're always adding to our content. The first month is free, and feel free to cancel after that just to take a look, but if you are interested. But we have, just for this event and the attendees of this event, we have put together an offer code whereby you will get, if you sign up for a yearly membership, which is normally £60 for a student, is half price, and then a monthly membership for a student is £4.99. The code I will put in the chat now. I'll put the URL in the chat as well, but that is the URL, and the code is just Law City, all one word and all in caps. And if you follow that, if you are interested, feel free to sign up, and by all means cancel it after a month, and we'd love to kind of hear feedback. But we've had a lot of good positive response about it helping in interviews and helping in applications in terms of that commercial awareness piece, given that it's coming from insights within the sector that are public knowledge, but you do find very hard to come by if you're not kind of rolling in the right circles, essentially. But yeah, it's just an offer that we've put together for everyone attending today. So do feel free to pop it in and try it out. And if you did want to continue, we'd love to have you as a subscriber, but if not, there's absolutely no hard feelings.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Adam. I would encourage every single person that is tuned in on us today to go ahead and check that out. It is called The Legal Update. It sounds awesome, and you get a discount. Why not, eh? Just jump right onto it. That is it from me today. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really, really hope you learned something and got some